What is up, good people? Let's do a little live. What do you say? Tons of stuff going on in the media regarding mass deportations. What's going to go on? And I think so much of this has to do with the fact that the Democrats really thought that Kamala Harris was going to win. They honestly, truly thought Kamala Harris was going to win. So now they're back on their heels going, oh my gosh, the guy actually won. We tried to kill him a couple of times, had plans for more. He didn't die. We tried to sue him. We raided his wife's panty drawer and she won't go meet with Joe Biden. I mean, just a bunch of ridiculous stuff, right? Lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. And so now the Democrats are stuck faced with the fact that, oh, this guy's actually going to take office. What do we do? So today's story, I'm going to start off with newly sworn in Los Angeles Police Department Chief Sparks Backlash. He's saying, nope, we're not going to help you with the mass deportations. Now, the crazy thing is that nobody knows what the plans actually are. We don't know. Trump hasn't come out with it. Trump's advisors hasn't come out with it. We can hear what we're going to talk about. We'll cover this one. And then we'll also talk about, where's someone here? Yeah. This is it. Homan outlines enforcement of Trump's border czar. We get into some of what Homan is, and he's going to be the guy kind of heading this plan, right? So we can kind of hear what he has to say. And it's wildly different than just willy-nilly deporting millions of people like that. Because you can't really do that. That is not a thing. That's not a thing. And especially when you consider the financial implications of just deporting maybe 20 million people, the amount of money it would take to do that, number one. And number two, the impact on the economy. Trump's going to listen to his advisors. He's going to listen to his advisors and go, you can't really do that. And Trump will say, but I want to. And they'll say, well, no. So what will end up happening is I think Trump will go after the those that are in their country that have committed a crime, that have criminal convictions, those that shouldn't be here, the hundreds of thousands that are already scheduled to be deported. Those will be the people that will be prioritized. And we're not talking about going in and, you came in 2 years ago and you haven't had your hearing yet. Out you go. I don't think that's going to happen. But the Democrat governors and leaders and Los Angeles Police Department chief, they're all basically stating just, we're not doing it. We're not helping you. We won't have police officers helping you with mass deportations. Well, I don't know that that's ever been the plan, that they're just going to use, police, because you don't have enough police in most of these communities where this has been a thing because you had, defund the police. So you don't have enough, here in Seattle, people always ask me, well, Sean, how many illegals do you have there? Not a lot. Not a lot. They just haven't built those communities here. We don't have an enormous Venezuelan community. We have a bunch of really, really mixed. You got Ethiopian, Venezuelan, Honduran. I mean, just a mixture. And a lot of that has to do with we are not, if you look at the map here in Seattle, we're way upper left USA. I mean, folks are going to go to Denver. They're going to go to Chicago. They're going to go to New York way before they're going to come to Seattle. They're like, Seattle? Where's that? A lot of folks don't know where Seattle, they just know it's somewhere far north, right? Somewhere far north. So let's get into this. But before we do, I need to, you know what? I'm trying to get to my live stream. Give me 1 second here, and I hope I don't freeze the damn thing. All right, here we go. I just wanted to get the comments up because I like looking at the comments as you guys make them. Sometimes they are the build the wall around California. I think people are pushing back right now because they're saying, hey, Trump's in office. Trump's going to be in office. So finally, we get some pushback against this ridiculousness, which has been, what are we officially 7.5 million in the country, but we know damn well that's probably closer to 15 million, maybe 20 million. I don't think we're going to deport 20 million. I just don't. I don't see that as a reality. This is news for reasonable people. But if people want to go on with that notion, let's see what happens. I mean, literally, we got to see what happens, right? All this reaction to, you know what I mean? Let the guy get in office. But it's this whole notion of, we need to push back on this right now. I mean, gruesome Newsom coming out and basically stating he's going to do a special legislative session to, go up against Trump's everything Trump. It's like, okay, all right. I mean, the pushback. How about you just try and work with the guy? And maybe you get some of the illegals out that have been committing all these crimes. What about the illegals that have, raped and murdered our young ladies? What about them? You want to just, no mass deportation there. And I realize those numbers are very small, but that would be a good start. This whole notion of ICE not working with local law enforcement, that has got to stop, right? Let ICE do their job. The newly confirmed chief of the Los Angeles Police Department made it clear during a recent hearing that his department will not assist with the mass deportations. What are the mass deportations there, sport? What are they? I don't know, but we're not doing it. I mean, that's literally what they're coming out and saying, right? In comments that sparked social media backlash. Since my appearance before the Committee on Public Safety, the national election has caused many Angelenos to feel a deep fear, especially in the immigrant community. If you're here, if you've got a hearing coming up and you have good odds of, staying in the country, you got nothing to worry about. Some of the massive concern is 75% of those that are on the docket to have a hearing don't qualify for asylum in the U.S. They just don't. They don't. The cartel has given them instructions. Here's what you say so you can get that first hearing. And so many of these people don't qualify. They're not here under what the United States basically deems applicable, guidelines for, all right, yeah. So your sister, got murdered at home by a cartel member. All right. We can prove that. All right. So, things like that versus I'm escaping violence, but there's been this notion with Biden in office that just go, you'll work it out later. And you know what? That's been a good bet because look at how many million people came into the country. Millions. So, deep fear, especially in the immigrant community, said Los Angeles Police Department Chief Jim McDonald at a November 8th city council meeting. So he literally 3 days after the election. I have met with members of the community and heard that fear. We also heard some of that just now at public comment. I know we'll speak more about immigration later in this hearing, but I want to be unequivocally clear here in my opening comments. Los Angeles Police Department will protect our immigrant community. Los Angeles Police Department officers will not take action to determine a person's immigration status and will not arrest someone for their status. Los Angeles Police Department will not assist with mass deportations. Well, what about getting out the folks that are committing crimes? What about that? I don't see any mention of that here. And you know what? Some folks, there's going to be some collateral damage, folks. Even if you're deporting a few 100,000, because we have a known number of, I think it's 400,000 illegals in the country that have criminal convictions. Yeah, whether they're here in the United States or they're in there from whatever country they're from, 400,000. Now, that might be, something small. It might be something ticky-tack. And that's where I say you're going to have some collateral damage. It's just gonna happen. McDonald went on to say that Los Angeles is a city of immigrants. The United States is a country of immigrants. But here's the but. You got to have policy and you got to have a system where you aren't just bringing people in willy-nilly to allow them to commit shenanigans like we're seeing from Tren de Aragua. I mean, in Chicago, we've had 30 arrested in very recent days. 30 from a known criminal prison gang from Venezuela. So that's the stuff that I think Trump will focus in on, but we don't really know because we haven't seen his plan. And yet you got these guys just knee jerking. We won't help you. It's like, okay, thanks for the support there, whatever. And you probably voted the wrong way. You probably voted for Kamala Harris. How'd that work out for you, sport? Yeah. I know immigrants are being disparaged right now. No, I don't think they are, but I think there is pushback to just bringing them in by the millions. That's what you've got going on. It's not disparaging all immigrants, but I want the people of Los Angeles to know my viewpoint. Our nation was built by immigrants, and LA is such an extraordinary city because of people from here, literally all over the world. Hey, Seattle is too. This is not new stuff, right? Most big cities now are just a melting pot of humanity. But in order to get there, and in order to get there safely, you've got to have policy, right? To remain in Mexico. Maybe we crank that up again, right? You're waiting for your hearing. You stay in Mexico. Let them work it out. Maybe you've got something along the lines of not using the parole mechanism, which is, hey, here's your hearing. Come back in 2031. Meanwhile, we're going to parole you to the interior of the United States. Good luck out there. Good luck out there. That's literally what's happened instead of using that for something like, folks that have been bombed out of their homes in Ukraine and they're seeking asylum. That's what parole is meant for, not millions of people streaming across the border coming in all at once. McDonald's comments sparked criticism from conservatives and social media, and a clip of the hearing was posted on X by the popular conservative account Libs of TikTok. Man, Libs of TikTok has some of the greatest stuff. They literally crowdsource all of this stuff, right? You just got ridiculous people. Who wants to tell him that they're going to get deported whether he likes it or not, the account posted. I mean, some of that's going to happen. Time to send in the feds, conservative influencer Harrison Crank posted on X. Get out of California while you still can, right? Yeah. So, you've got these folks just popping off with stuff. You've got governors going down this road of, here's what we're doing. And, it's kind of just this huge misnomer because we don't really know what this all looks like. Homan outlines enforcement prior to Trump's border czar. Homan, he's the dude who's going to run this, right? He was formerly ICE director under Trump. A secure border is going to save lives. Yes, and an unsecure border does not save lives. It actually deletes them, right? Unlived, I think is the new term. Yeah, he unlived that person. It's just like, why can't we just say kill them? Oh, that's racist. Incoming czar, what's downside of securing the border? Former ICE director Tom Homan, he tapped lead border enforcement. He's going to prioritize deporting criminals and nationals that have threats to security while pushing to designate Mexican drug cartels as terrorist organizations. All right. So does that sound like mass deportations of families with kids? No. There's more than one priority, Homan said Wednesday on News Nation's Como. I don't know about you, but I watched a fair amount of News Nation, but I can't watch Chris Como. I just can't. I'm like, that whole thing you had during the pandemic with your buddy brother. Authorities have identified more than 700,000 undocumented immigrants with criminal records and final deportation orders who remain in the United States. All right. So 700,000 between convicted criminals and those who don't have the legal right to be in the United States. So who's that going to fall down to? I mean, who's that going to fall to? I shouldn't say down, but you know what I'm saying. So are the feds going to be able to do this? Are the feds actually going to be allowed to do their job? That's the question of the hour. We don't know yet, right? There's more than one priority. We're talking about reforming the Flores settlement agreement to allow longer detention of migrant families. Okay, that doesn't sound horrible. Modify the Tracking Victims Protection Act to enable faster processing of unaccompanied minors. Aren't we missing like 300,000 minors in the United States? Where'd they go? I don't know. We're just letting them in willy-nilly, so we can't really be held accountable for that. I mean, don't you think we should figure out where the children are? Can you imagine being like a 10-year-old? Yeah, come to the United States. It's going to be great. Then you just end up being somebody's sex slave. I mean, isn't that what everybody's thinking? I mean, that's what I think of when I hear of unaccompanied minors. And you see these kids walking through the border. I mean, that is just brutal. Can you imagine being like a 9 or a 10-year-old and you're just, there's one guy up there who seems to be kind of nice, but he might have his way with me at some point in time. I don't really know. They have no idea They're in a strange country. They're going somewhere. They got a piece of paper and nobody really knows, what the deal is. And then all of a sudden there are just 300,000 of them missing. How's that work? Make that make sense, right? And then overhaul asylum laws. Okay. All right. And reinstate the Remain in Mexico program. So reinstating the Remain in Mexico program, overhauling the asylum laws. I mean, that's going to take, Congress to do that. But with the House and the Senate, yeah. Are they actually going to get to overhauling asylum laws? Because nobody wants to do that, right? That's been the hot potato. I don't want to do that. It's going to make me look bad. Maybe Trump will. Donald Trump's new administration, who has he chosen so far? So Homan being the main one, and he's basically said, if we don't secure the border, more migrants are going to die. Yeah, there's no downside in securing the border. I mean, does that not make sense? It makes absolute sense to me. Congress needs to fix this. Immigration enforcement is very controversial. It is, and that's why it's just been kick the can down the road because, I don't want this on my watch. But what has happened in the United States the last 4 years has just been atrocious because not only has it, impacted border states, but now you've got people being shipped off, from Texas and Florida into all these different cities. And I think some of what happened in the election was pushback to, hey, you jammed all these illegals down our throats. All of our money went to them. Our taxpayer money went to them. Now we've got budgets that are upside down. And we, the people, the constituents of those cities are saying, no thanks, hard pass. And that's a little bit of why things went so red because leadership made decisions that didn't necessarily reflect what the people wanted. Like, how about Chicago? Do you think the folks in South Chicago that are, being shot and killed on the day, every 2 minutes, 48 seconds last night it was, and every 2 minutes, 48 seconds, somebody's getting shot in Chicago, and then you've got somebody being murdered every 14 minutes. So do you think those folks are worried about a bunch of illegals, how they're going to, get funded? They don't want them there in the first place. They don't have the resources to deal with them. They're just trying to survive. So, this notion of, we're not helping. So yeah, here's Tom Homan pledges to find missing migrant children. You know what? I'm going to have to do this and so I can read it. Homan revealed plans to launch a major initiative to locate approximately 300,000 unaccompanied migrant children. Some are going to be forced labor. We've already found some in forced labor. Some are going to be sex trafficking. Some are living with pedophiles, Homan said, pledging to make finding these children a top priority. How do we not know where they are? How did that, you know what I mean? If you want to bring them in just all day long, that's fine. But you got to have a system where you know where everybody is. And yeah, well, I mean, that older gentleman over there, he said he wanted a dozen young girls. So it should be fine, right? This makes no sense whatsoever. Border czar Tom Homan, all we want to do is enforce the law. When pressed about the potential economic impact of mass deportations, particularly on industries heavily reliant on immigrant labor, Homan said that the enforcement would focus on criminals and security threats rather than indiscriminate roundups. So there you go. I mean, that's what he's saying. I have no reason not to believe him. Is there another agenda here? I don't think so. But again, I don't know. We're just all guessing at this point, right? We're just guessing. If you're in the country illegally, you're in violation of the law. So you're not off the table, but we're going to prioritize what we do, Homan said. And that's just it. You can't just run around and, if you're in here illegally, we're going to take you out. You can't do that because there's too many. And there's especially been too many the last couple of years. Homan cited data showing about 85% of asylum claims at the southern border are ultimately rejected. That's what I think people aren't recognizing. And that a few 100,000 get tossed out every year anyway. Every year. Even during the Biden administration. Because not everybody is qualified for asylum here under political whatever. Arguing the system needs significant reform. I think we can all agree on that. But this wide open southern border, No can do. I mean, you got to tighten that up. And you know what? There's been way fewer crossings because this has been a hot potato for the Biden administration, Biden and Harris. Let's not forget that. She was actually in the administration, believe it or not. They learned a few key phrases. This is what Homan's saying about, the illegals coming to the country. They learned a few key phrases from the cartels of what to say that make yourself pass that first interview. So they've been taught. I mean, they've got it on TikTok, and that's what's made this whole deal. It's a numbers game. Hey, go to the United States. You might make it. You might get in because they're allowing folks to do this. Here's what you say to get that first hearing. And then they'll hear from other people what it's going to take to stay in the United States. And then even if they don't, they're supposed to get kicked out, they're just running around. Right? I mean, who knows where they are? If you're really escaping fear and persecution from your home government, you're going to wait in Mexico to escape that fear and persecution. That's the way it used to be until Sleepy Joe just basically took a butcher knife to our policy under Trump and said, nope, we're getting rid of that. We're getting rid of that. And yep, we're going to put in 94 executive orders that basically loosen up the southern border. So this whole notion about, hey, we had some legislation and you guys didn't approve it. Yeah, well, a bunch of Democrats didn't approve it either because it was terrible legislation. It was terrible. It just elevated and normalized a whole bunch of illegals coming in. As simple as that. So we got the Phoenix mayor. So we got the LA police chief, new guy, Phoenix mayor. We won't help Trump's mass deportation efforts. All these governors they're getting together. And I think so much of this has happened because they honestly expected Kamala Harris to win. And that's not happening. That didn't happen. Believe it or not. Shocking. I know. United States basically said, no, in spite of Kamala Harris spending $1 billion with a B. Shocking. Councilman-elect Ana Hernandez said Phoenix will need to step up and fight for immigrants and refugees after voters re-elected Donald Trump to the White House and passed a state law empowering police to arrest and deport undocumented migrants. So you've got a bunch of politicians guessing on what should happen, and they don't really know. They have no idea. But if you've got illegals in your community that are committing crimes, out you go. I have zero issue with that, right? That's the way it should be. If you have a criminal conviction, maybe you're not a prime candidate for being here in the United States. And I know that's going to roil some people. It's going to upset some people. Well, Sean, but they're contributing economically. Okay, so how do you make that determination? What is that reasonable determination? I don't know. You're going to have to play God at some point in time, right? You're in, out you go. I mean, that's just how it's going to have to go. I can say without equivocation that as long as I'm mayor, Phoenix will not use its police department or any city resources whatsoever to assist in mass deportation efforts by the Trump administration. All right. So the illegals are just going to go to communities that are already overrun. They're going to hang out there because they know they've got the least likelihood of being deported. And I've talked about this a lot. The fact that those coming across our border illegally do not want to stay in border communities because you're that easy to be deported right back over the Rio into Mexico. They don't want to stay there. There aren't just thousands of illegals hanging out in El Paso. There's not thousands of them hanging out in Eagle Pass, where I went down a couple of times early this year. They're not hanging out there. They'd send me to New York, send me to Chicago, send me to Denver. Because if you look at the map, those cities are fairly far north of the border. So, hence, I can say, we already read that. Councilwoman-elect Hernandez said Phoenix Council must move immediately to protect immigrant and refugee residents in the city from the violence of Proposition 314. I am ready for this fight. What about fighting for the people that are being impacted negatively by Tren de Aragua? What about fighting for U.S. citizens that have been impacted by criminals in our country? What about that? Why am I not hearing about that? Because that's what Homan actually said he's going to do. So maybe you're just getting the wrong memo. Maybe you haven't got the right memo from Trump yet. Oh, there is no memo yet? Oh, yeah, but you're just talking out your ass anyway? Okay, all right, I can believe that. So the same way that abortion arrests were deprioritized, immigration-related calls to the Phoenix Police Department need to be deprioritized. Maybe they don't use your local police. Maybe they just use ICE agents, National Guard? What about that? How about a little circumvention of local? Because if you have to deal with local police, I mean, this is going to take forever. Here in Seattle, here in Portland, you don't have enough cops to basically, even fake public safety. You're not even close. You may have 25% of what the FBI says of a shift presence, meaning enough cops on the streets to keep that city safe. You just don't have enough police. So if they're off chasing some illegal, not going to happen, right? Just not going to happen. You don't have the resources in some of these big liberal cities to do that. Now, in other red cities, well, different story. And you've got police departments in red cities lining up, chomping at the bit. Hey, we want to get some of these folks out of here that are causing our cities to be overrun with criminal activity. That's not a hard one to figure out, right? Here's The Guardian. I love reading from The Guardian because it's just so skewed. U.S. states urged to find new ways to block Trump's mass deportation plan. Hey, The Guardian, what plan? What plan is that? I know I keep harping on this, but we haven't seen the details. So instead of just, but that's what they're doing. California and other states must mount aggressive, multi-pronged response to defend immigrants, advocates warned. All right. How about this? What about the fact that Latinos voted in numbers for Trump? What about that? Let's talk about that for 1 second. All right. Say you got 20 million of these folks in the United States. You cull out 1 million. You cull out 1 million of the criminals and those who shouldn't be here, something along those lines. So now you got 19 million. Most of these folks are coming from Venezuela, Honduras, Colombia, Ecuador. You know what I'm saying? You got some from Ethiopia, you got some from China, but the vast majority of these, and what I saw was really interesting, boots on the ground when I was in Eagle Pass, was when the coyotes bring them across the border and get them across the river where they can surrender, they have them change clothes, right? Have them get out of their wet clothes immediately. And so many of the clothes that I saw that have been discarded, and those of you that send me pictures from your border communities, are children's clothes. These are all families. A lot of them are families with kids, and they are coming here to raise their families. And so when they come here, they become citizens. They're hardworking folks. All right. Work with me here. In their communities, they are hardworking folks. Now, I know we've had a tough time integrating some of these communities, but something more that's like from Haiti, not Central America and not South America, not Southern America. And the vast majority of these folks, they're religious. They believe in Catholicism. They're Catholic, right? They're Catholic. They're Christian Catholic. And when they become citizens in the United States, they're going to support whatever candidate has family values. They're not here to get an abortion. In fact, they have a lot of children, and the children's clothes along the border, it's littered with, little kids, shoes, little kids, clothes, blankets. I saw so many blankets, little tiny backpacks, right? You can put the backpack on a kid because the kid thinks he wants to be like his parents. And they're going to, walk across Mexico. That's a real thing. It's a real thing. And the border communities have shops set up for all of that stuff. So when these people eventually become naturalized in the United States, they probably ain't voting blue, because the blue people don't support their values, which are essentially Christian, Catholic Christian, right? So, hey, there's another 19 million Republican voters. That's one of my things that I keep thinking about. And I think that is a real reality. And the reason I say that is look at the Latino vote in this last election. Those folks have a piece of the American dream now, and they want to preserve it. They've made it. They're in. Yeah, that silly party that brought us in, they let us in, but hey, we're in it for ourselves because it's a, dog eat dog world out there. It is natural survivalship, right? The strong survive. So whatever values whatever presidential or whatever electorate comes up with that supports their ideology, that's how they're going to vote. So this whole notion of we're letting 20 million people into the country to vote Democrat, think about that long term. Think about that long term. Does that make sense? Make that make sense. Doesn't to me. And the Latino vote with Trump this past election kind of really says to me, all right, yeah. And if you ever talk to any of these folks, they're just trying to escape just a crap hole country, Venezuela being a prime example. They're just trying to, get to a better life. Now, that being said, Venezuela did dump out its prisons. And we've got that influence here. So you're going to have to sort through, you're going to have to do a little sifting through the stuff. Gavin Newsom's Defiant Trump video goes viral. We will stand firm. Well, so gruesome Newsom, he's just saying a whole bunch of stuff, right? He's coming out. Let's watch his video here. It's Newsom. This is just how Newsom operates, right? He's just... not a lot of respect for the guy. He says a lot of stuff. Most of it's nonsense.
Well,
sorry, I'll start it over.
We have a president-elect, and I'm one of those people. I revere the institution. I revere this country. I revere the presidency, and I want our president to succeed. And my job is not to wake up every single day and get a crowbar and try to put it in the spokes of the wheel of the Trump administration. And so again, in that spirit of an open hand, not a closed fist, that's how we want to proceed. That said, fourth point, I'm not naive either. And we're pragmatic. And we will stand firm. I am reminded there's that great old poem about, the winds may howl, but I will not be swept away. This notion that we have to plant our feet. And I remember I've been here long enough, having worked with the previous Trump administration. I'm not naive about those winds. And they did howl. We were involved in over 100, in fact, we were involved in specifically 122 lawsuits with the Trump administration. We know their playbook. We know what they're going to do. I talked a lot about the campaign, and I appreciated Kamala Harris's closing message about Donald Trump has an enemies list, and she said, have a to-do list.
And how'd that work out for you, Kamala? How'd that work out for you?
I said I would make it a modest addendum to that. So did Donald Trump. That to-do list is laid out in a 922-page document, of which there's 270 specific points that he has publicly supported in that Project 2025 document, which 75% of its authors, and there's a multitude of authors, work with the Trump administration. None of us are naive when he said he knew nothing about it. That is a to-do list. That is a playbook. The Heritage Foundation and others backing that playbook. You build on that, not naive about what to anticipate.
Whether you believe Trump when Trump says, hey, the Project 2025, I'm not affiliated with that. So much of this is just back and forth at this point in time, right? He's distanced himself from 2025. But here's what I would say about that. At least Republicans have a playbook. What did the Democrats have? Oh, we got to protect abortion rights and we got to protect transsexuals. All right. What else you got? I'm going to campaign on joy. We're going to campaign on joy. Like, oh, so bad, so bad. In the post, which has since received more than 8 million views and 100,000 likes, Newsom referenced Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's mandate for the next Republican administration. Is it? Is it? Has anybody said that's going to happen? Or are Democrats just guessing? They're guessing. They have no idea. just like the border deportations. They have no idea. No idea, because it hasn't been set forth yet. You got to remember, Sleepy Joe is still in office. Sleepy Joe is in office for the rest of November, December. Did you guys see the video of him falling tripping on the beach? And then he just can't really get his rhythm back. And his wife has to kind of hold him up. I mean, I've walked on the beach too. And sometimes, it's a little tricky, but man, that guy is not well. There's just something. He's declining rapidly. So, this notion by Gavin, he's literally trying to take the lead because he wants to be the presidential candidate, the front runner for Democrats in 2028. Well, I say, hey, I'm all for that, because that's going to be an easy campaign for the Republicans, no matter who the Republicans run at that point, because Trump can't anymore. All you got to do is show footage of California. And, so if you want the whole country to go like this, go ahead and vote for Gavin Newsom. Period. Yeah. He's unelectable, in my opinion. He's unelectable. So if the Republicans can kind of just, keep down the middle of the road, not have any craziness go on, but some of that'll happen, right? Some of that'll happen. So Newsom went ahead and he wants to convene a special session to safeguard the state's progressive policies, which have worked out so well for California, ahead of the Republicans' second term in the White House. I have been focusing on the refinery issue in California. California's got, restrictions on what kind of gasoline its refiners can produce so that, you can have just really, really clean gasoline, the least dirty of all, right? And in doing so, gasoline is just going to cost more and more and more for you residents of California. That sucks. And it's all under this guise of, this most recent legislation that's going to cost Californians anywhere between probably 45 and maybe 65 cents a gallon was under the guise of, leveling out these price spikes because there's so few refineries that when a refinery goes down for maintenance or whatever reason, there isn't enough gasoline to go around. And so you've got a supply and demand and supply issue. And California already doesn't produce enough gasoline of its own because it's that special blend to go around for everybody. They're already importing about 8%. And you've got another refinery closing down. You've got Chevron pulling out, going to Houston or going to, was it Dallas? I think they're taking their headquarters to Dallas. And there's another couple refineries in California that may shut down because it's an economic decision. So this is all in response to Gavin Newsom, trying to be the people for the man and instead just driving the prices through the roof. So how does that work? Make that make sense, right? Because I've talked a million times about going down to Oklahoma where they don't have all this ridiculous stuff. I'm going to go down to see my parents this Thanksgiving. And I just marvel at the gas station, how, gas with a 2 in front of the dollars per gallon, a 2? A 2? Here in not the United States of Seattle, that might as well be, $5 a gallon, $6 a gallon, not uncommon. And that's not uncommon in California either, right? I've seen it dropping down to $4 a gallon, in a lot of areas in California. All right. So we've got this special session to protect liberal policies from Trump. You guys are just a bunch of fraidy cats, and your policies, your existing liberal policies have not done anybody any favors. They just haven't. It's just been, one disaster after another. Look at Oakland. Just in general. Look at San Francisco. Just in general. And even in those areas, you've had a shift towards red. The only place you really haven't is here in Washington. Shocker, I know. Shocker. People here are up in arms. I'm going to be doing I'm going to be doing a story, just a real crazy story. I'll share it with you in 1 second. But we've got some people in Seattle and in Washington that are literally wigging out and doing some crazy stuff since Trump won. I mean, they're just, just absolutely wigged out. And so here's our last story is walls other Democratic governors vow to fight against Trump's agenda. Now, when I see this guy, I just think turd. I think he's a turd. Tampon Tim. Yeah, you know, and he runs around and does this number. Just and from all the policy I've seen in Minnesota and all the folks that I have on the live stream, he is he's not doing anybody any favors. So Minnesota, what were you thinking there with Tampon Tim? Oh, he's so progressive. I mean, I don't get it. But then again, he's no different. And he reminds me a lot of Jay Inslee here in Washington State. Just went down all these roads that he believes are correct. Tampons in the boys' bathrooms? You betcha. Because, you know, boys have you-know-whats, and every month, just like, what are we even doing? But here's some of the stories I'm I'm going to be covering. I don't even know if I can show it on. I don't even know if I can run this one on the regular channel. Wife of prominent trans writer hacked father to death with ice axe after Trump's election night victory. That happened here in Seattle. I kid you not. It is just. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I have to put up with here in the state of Washington. So she took out her 67-year-old dad with an ice axe, because she wigged out over the election. Talk about being strong just a little bit too tight, right? I mean, how about this? Connecticut special ed teacher vowed to put Trump supporters on a stretcher forever, I believe was the quote. Just because you won doesn't mean that we don't remember who the F you voted for. You're not in the clear. Please don't test your gangster on me, because you will end up on a stretcher, gone forever. This is an elementary school teacher. People are out of their minds. They are literally losing their minds over this stuff. So when you say deportation, they automatically just, everybody's going to get deported. That's not the case. That is not the case. Okay, where do boys stick tampons? David, I do not know. I don't know. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. Maybe I'll do a podcast on where boys put tampons. I'm going to leave you guys with that, okay? Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, think about where boys. Yep. All right. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.